Good morning. Oh, no, 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 no. Good morning. There we go. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be introducing our 5th annual Varrow Madness. Is that awesome or what? My name is Dan Weiss, and I'm one of the managing partners here at Varrow and our chief financial officer. And again, it is just really a pleasure to be able to introduce our 5th annual Varrow Madness. First of all, how about that video? Wasn't that awesome? So, how many of you remember how ugly Microsoft Word used to be? It's like, oh, really? So I remember back in the day, you know, everybody starts their career off in support, or many of us do at least. And I remember you're having to do all the important things when you're on the support desk. You're answering support calls from end users. You're doing important things like ordering the correct printer, ordering the correct compatible mouse pad, you know, important things like that. Nobody gets that joke. Okay, never mind. All right. Well, anyway, again, thank you guys so much for being here. 5th annual Varrow Madness. Some of you come from very close by. Some of you have come from far away. But just know that we all appreciate you being here today with us. I mean, how often do you have an event like this where you can combine technology, learning, networking, and all the other important things like St. Patrick's Day food and basketball, right? I mean, that's an awesome event, isn't it? So, absolutely. So first of all, I want to introduce Jessica Carter, the original architect of Varrow Madness. So Jessica, let me ask you a question here. I mean, if you really wanted to just watch basketball during a workday, why don't you just come right out and say it instead of having all this expense?
I figured everyone could work and watch the basketball at the same time.
She's been yelling too much, so no, she's not a yeller. But anyway, thank you, Jessica. This is an awesome, awesome event. Again. So I've got all this stuff to tell you, so if you just give me your patience for just a few minutes, and we're going to get the important people up here. First of all, what is the first thing I want to talk about here? Yes, absolutely. First of all, this event would not be even possible without you. But even just as important, this event would not be possible without our sponsors. So I'd like to have a round of applause for all of our sponsors. 35 sponsors this year. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. This is an awesome event. We have 4 VMware certified design experts here under roof. We have at least 4 CCIEs from Varrow here under roof. We got 35 individual sessions today. We have Jeremiah Cook, CEO of Varrow, doing a keynote. We have Alexis, don't let me mess the name up here, Ohanian, founder of Reddit, joining us this afternoon for another keynote. That's going to be awesome, awesome, awesome. Booth, bracket, cards. Everybody know what a booth bracket card is. Hopefully you have one. They're green in color. Go get them filled out. Visit the booths during the booth time. Get your stickers. Turn in the survey. We have a ton of, do we not have a ton of prizes?
Ridiculous. It's amazing.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I mean, we have pallets full of prizes. You must be present to receive your prize. Last year, we gave out prizes for almost like an hour, maybe even more than that. It was ridiculous. It was awesome ridiculous. So fill out your booth bracket cards, turn them in, please. Your surveys are very important to us because it helps us improve this event. Just want to quickly beg your indulgence here. During the keynotes, if you would please kind of keep the noise down in the booths. We got a big room here, noise carries, and we're going to have some really great information come from the keynotes. So the Genius Bar. I went to the Genius Bar yesterday, and I sat down and had a picture made with some of our VP of Sales, who's he's about where I'm at from a genius level, like really, really low. So go to the Genius Bar. We have lots of awesome people there to be able to answer some of the technical questions you might have. We have EMC and VMware Labs here today. So we've got lots of workstations and lots of smart people to help you understand more about this awesome technology. We talked about the keynotes. I said 35, 45 breakout sessions. And It is the week of St. Patrick's Day, so there will be lots of fun. Can I say beer, HR lady? Can I say beer? Okay, we're gonna have, how about refreshments this afternoon? Is that legal? All right, good. What else?
Just a one session change in your program book in breakout group A. The last Varrow session that's on there is actually in Sandpiper, the Sandpiper room, and then a session that is not on there but is really happening is a Varrow session on VMAX 3 and Victorious C. So that's the only change. And also, we apologize about the Wi-Fi not getting you guys the password earlier this morning. I know some of you were asking, but the password is Madness 2015 in all caps.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be an awesome event. You're going to learn something. You're going to meet new people. I would like to introduce you to a guy that, first of all, he is an awesome, awesome technologist. He is an awesome, awesome businessman, a fantastic leader, an all-around really great guy to talk with. Very interesting to sit down with a guy like this and just pick his brain on all kinds of things related to business and technology. The Chief Executive Officer of Varrow, Jeremiah Cook.
Hey everybody, how's this? Is this mic good? You guys hear me? All right, well it is really, really good to be up here today. My name is Jeremiah Cook. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Varrow, and that's my original business partner, Dan Weiss. We started the business together back in 2008. But I'm so glad to be here. I am from Greensboro, North Carolina. So right here, can we give Greensboro a big shout out? So I live in Greensboro with my wife and 5 children. I think my wife and some of my kids are here today. One of my daughters is an intern at Varrow, Caitlin, and she's somewhere here in the audience. And also, I think my parents are here, so we've made this a whole family affair since it's in Greensboro. And really, really glad to be here. I want to follow up with what Dan and Jessica said. So big shout out. Thank you to all of our customers and our sponsors. Thank you so much to the whole Varrow family, and thank you for everybody at Varrow that really put all this effort in and all the speakers and everything to make this possible. This is going to be a great day for lovers of technology and basketball. So before I get into my presentation, just a real quick update on Varrow and our messaging and our focus. We are now focused on cloud, mobility, and security solutions. So we decided to focus in these areas because we thought these were the areas that were important to our time. And we changed this branding last year, and it's worked out really well. Security has been growing like crazy for us. In the mobility space, mobile device management and VDI solutions have been growing for us. And in the cloud arena, hybrid cloud solutions, converged infrastructure, data center networking, virtualization have just been continuing to grow. And we've won awards in all of these categories, and I just want to give a big round of applause to all the customers that have believed in us and helped make this possible, so thank you so much. So today, kind of in line with that history of IT, do you guys like that video? The history of IT. I'm going to tell you a story about the evolution of basketball, computers, and space exploration. So why basketball? Obviously, we're in March Madness, the first day of the round of 64. We're in the computer industry, and space exploration really is the new frontier. That is the future. And I'm going to try to do a little magic puzzle here and weave these 3 things together into a talk, and we'll see how it works out. And we're going to talk about the history, we're going to talk about the present, we're going to talk about the future. And I'm dedicating this to my 5 children, and I just had recently a newborn. This is Thomas. He's a month and a half. And if you're a parent and you know how to read the little baby faces, this face is, quick, entertain me. I have the attention span of a 1-month-old. So, Thomas, I'm going to get on with this story, okay? So it all begins once upon a time in a land far, far away, in the town of Hall, Indiana. A little baby boy is born. The year is 1910. This is over 100 years ago, and the little baby's name was John. And his parents, they had no idea that John would one day become a basketball legend, a great leader, and the link between basketball and early computers. These are some of the things that were happening while John was a young boy. In 1911, IBM was formed, not making computers, but the original punch clocks, so you could officially punch into work. Between 1914 and 1918 was World War I, and during that time, the NACA was founded, which later became NASA. Also during that time, AT&T put up their first transcontinental New York to San Francisco telephone poles, and Alexander Graham Bell made that first call from New York to San Francisco. In 1925 to 1933, John is 15 years old. He's a great basketball player. He can shoot from anywhere. He can dribble between his legs. He takes his team to 3 state championships, and they win a championship in 1927. He goes on to Purdue. He's a 3-time All-American, and he helps take Purdue to a national championship. And this was before the NCAA national championship. So between 33 and 38, he plays professional basketball and continues playing professional basketball and makes it into the NBL. So he's on one of the first teams in the NBL, and the NBL later becomes the NBA. In 1939, John is 29 years old, the uranium atom is split, and World War II begins. And some of the first computers come to life. Konrad Zuse of Germany invents the Z1, a mechanical computer. Alan Turing, the bomb, he's at Bletchley Park. If you've seen the movie The Imitation Game, it's all about Alan Turing. And this is the computer, or the mechanical device, that he built in the United Kingdom to help break the German Enigma code. And that, by breaking that code, they think they helped stop World War II a few years early. And that was one of the first computers. In 1939, that same year that World War II started, there was the first NCAA tournament, but it only had 8 teams. Dick Vitale is born that year, which is really coincidental because he's still the sportscaster today, right? And he says, "Trifecta, that's awesome, baby. You are a PTP, primetime player." And 2 PTPs were born, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. They start Hewlett-Packard. So that was a big computer company that started in 1939. So a lot was happening. And then, all right, this is the connection. This is the connection. All right, you guys got to reach with me here between basketball and computers. So John, this great basketball player, he decides to help the United States in World War II. He joins the Navy. In 1944, IBM delivers one of its first computers to the Navy called the Harvard Mark I. It was a mechanical calculator where you would take the cables and you would program it to do these really complex calculations, and it could do very long strings of calculations. And then the connection happens. John Wooden, that was the little baby John I was talking about. John Wooden becomes the head coach of UCLA, and that is the connection between basketball and the first computers. So John went on to live 99 years. He was called the Wizard of Westwood because UCLA was playing in Westwood, California. Coaches for 27 years. First 16 years, wins no NCAA titles, but still has like an 80% win record. Last 12 years of his career, wins 10 NCAA titles. Still the winningest NCAA tournament coach in history. 80% win record, 80% plus win record. So it's just incredible. Great leader. And you can see there, he's in the picture with Kareem. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he says to Kareem, he says, "Buddy, to win once, you have to have talent. But to win again, you got to have character." And if you do a little research on John Wooden and you watch some YouTubes, this was a guy with a lot of character. They asked him in one of the videos, he's like, when's the last time you said a curse word? And this is when he was like 90-something years old. He was like, "I think I was 14. And this is a guy that he was married for 50 years, and every day, even after his wife died, the last 20 years, he wrote her a love letter every single day, or every year on their anniversary, he would write his wife after she died a love letter. So this was a guy with a lot of character, the Wizard of Westwood. And as for the evolution of basketball, as you know today, we're in the round of 64, and guess who's still here? Dick Vitale is still here, and guess who else is still here? UCLA is still here, and I think also Purdue is still here. I could be wrong. But big evolution that's gone on there. Now, let's talk about the computer revolution. I'll go back to 1955. So 10 years after World War II, while John is still coaching at UCLA, transistors come to life, and they change everything. If you think about it, well, before transistors, we had mechanical switches. After mechanical switches, we had vacuum tube switches. And then finally, transistors, electrical current switches, came to life, and that changed computing forever. They were about this big when they were first created, and we got them smaller and smaller and smaller. Now transistors are microscopic, and we can fit billions of them on a single CPU chip that I can fit in the palm of my hand. The IBM 608 mainframe came to life, one of the first mainframes to support transistors in 1955. Also in 1955, two little babies were born that are going to change the world. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs in San Francisco and in Seattle. In 1965, Bill Gates is introduced to computing. He goes to a small school that gives them a lot of leeway to learn lots of new things. And he gets to work on a teletype 33 that's connected over telephone lines into Washington University into a mainframe. And he types some commands, and then something happens out at the Washington University mainframe. And this is how he gets introduced to computers. In 1968, when Steve Jobs was 13, he called Bill Hewlett, who also lived in that same town in California, and he was like, Bill, hey, I'm 13, I'm pretty cool. How about you give me a summer job? And Bill Hewlett gave him that job, and that's how Steve Jobs got introduced to computers at the age of 13. In 1969, these brave explorers, as brave as any explorers that we've ever known, go all the way to the moon without really knowing how they were, if they were going to make it back. This is a huge risk. On the Saturn V rocket, the Saturn V rocket that helped launch them to the moon and carry them to the moon, they were actually on the instrumentation unit. There was actually IBM components, along with a lot of other companies' components in those instrumentation units in the Saturn V rocket. And also there was IBM computers in mission control. So that, we've now made the connection between basketball and computers all the way to space exploration. In 1971, here's another guy that's really interested in space exploration was born, a guy named Elon Musk. He was born 2 years after the moon landing. Some people say he's kind of like Tony Stark, right? So he started Tesla, and he wants to colonize Mars. In 1977, the IBM 33 was born. This was, I guess, could be called the first converged infrastructure. This was a complete business solution of printers, computers, PCs, mainframe data processors, and other things, archival to tape, all of this solution. It looks like a bunch of office furniture, but that's all computing in 1977 for the enterprise. But computing also wants to make it to the home. And so Steve Jobs comes out with the Apple II in 1977. That's my birth year. Also that year, George Lucas, a great storyteller, begins the story of Star Wars and introduces the concept of the Force. He says the Force, it surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. And so I started to think about the Force and what else can do those kinds of things for us. I was thought about GPS satellites. Without GPS satellites binding us together, we may not be here today. We may not have found our way to Corey Convention Center. So the first GPS satellite, this is, Sputnik came out in 1957, so this is about 20 years later. We put a satellite in space that could do GPS location, the Navstar system, and we still use different satellites, but the same Navstar system today. In 1981, Bill Gates sits at the end of a long table facing down the IBM executives and says, I can deliver you an operating system for the x86 processor that you can put on the personal PC. And I think he sold them that solution for $50,000 with no royalties, and that became IBM DOS, which later became PC DOS and MS-DOS. And Microsoft was founded, and that was the beginning of Intel's popularity. In 1986, the beginning of the internet is formed. The Internet Engineering Task Force comes out. They solidify the TCP/IP protocol, and Cisco comes out with one of the very early routers, the AGS+. In 87, I get my first computer, an IBM model PS2 with a 286. It's got DOS on it, Windows. I play Sierra games, Thexter, Lemmings, Leisure Suit Larry. But my mom had somebody come to the house and take Leisure Suit Larry off the computer. So. In 1988, EMC comes out with the Orion 1. This is the first solid-state external storage subsystem for the mainframe. Has 2 directors, 2 solid-state drives, max capacity of 512 megabytes, and it was 20 times the performance of disk. And 8 years later, in 1996, the first fiber channel switches were built as we know them today, and that was from Brocade and McData. So this was an early SAN and an early solid-state SAN. You could say a flash SAN. In 1988, the company Calpana creates the first 10 megabit Ethernet switch with an awesome 30 megabit backplane. It was awesome. Later, Cisco buys Calpana, and that becomes the Cisco Catalyst 3000 series. So I hope you guys are enjoying this IT history, because this was really fun for me to do all this research. In 1990, so this is some cool years, right? So Novell comes to life. Novell gets really popular with 3.0. It starts going into a lot of businesses, and that becomes the file sharing solution inside a lot of businesses, and the printer sharing solution. In 1992, Windows NT enters the game with 2 processor architectures being supported, both RISC and Intel. And we didn't know who was going to win at that time. Was it going to be the RISC architecture or the Intel architecture? In 93, the first directory services, and in 95, the first remote access to run a Windows session that was server-based. In 95, this is a great year. This is the birth of my daughter, Caitlin. And Caitlin now interns at Varrow. And she's my Windows 95 baby. And why my Windows 95 baby? First of all, this is how I remember what year my kids were born by, like operating systems and things like this. But if you remember, Windows 95 had this little button in the right-hand corner called the Start button. That was the first OS to have the Start button. And Caitlin was my Start button. I was 18 years old, had a child young, and that kicked me into gear. Like, I better get good grades. I better take care of this kid. And I better get a good job. So she was my Start button. She's a great leader and a great motivator today, and she's still my Start button and tries to keep me motivated and take me running around the block and make sure that I'm getting my exercise. In 1995, I go to Virginia Tech for computer engineering. Little did I know that computer engineering was very much like electrical engineering, and you had to do all these things with circuits and things like this. And it turned out to not be for me to be that deep into all the circuit kind of stuff. It was really hard. Also in 95, Google came out, and so I found out that I liked the internet and I liked to search stuff on Google. And we would hook up our serial cables at Virginia Tech to this thing called a Siemens Roam phone, and that's how we got internet access. There was no Ethernet jack to plug into. One of my buddies, his dad was in IT, and he was like, man, my dad says if you go get this Novell cert, you can make some serious money. So I said, all right, I'm going to go do this thing, and I'm going to go, I was either going to go to computer science, switch majors, or I was going to go get a job. So decided to go get a job in Greensboro, moved here around the 96 time frame, first salary job, had a great mentor. And what my mentor taught me was, one, before you type shutdown on Novell, make sure you ask the business before you do that. The other thing he taught me was that computers were invented by humans, and you can learn anything in this computing arena. At very worst case, what you might have to do is read the instructions. And so he's a brave man. He took on all sorts of cool technologies, and that sort of got me motivated to take on more technologies. I got my Novell CNA cert, my Microsoft cert, my CCNA, MCSC, all those kinds of things. But I had to put this Novell sticker up here. Novell, the power to change. And boy, did change happen, right? And you see my first smartphone there. There's a lot of change going on in that industry as well. So in 1996, this big tectonic shift really happened, and that certification I had became pretty useless because Microsoft started dominating this space. And Windows NT, when NT4 came out, it really started to proliferate throughout a lot of organizations and started defeating Novell very handily. And if you look at this guy, Paul Maritz, he is now the CEO of Pivotal, which is sort of this Platform 3 organization focused on platform as a service big data. But he was kind of the father of Windows 95 and NT and helped bring Windows NT to the masses. Another really big shift. So Windows becomes used in the data center to the masses as the data center operating system. And in 1998, the father of, let's say the father of the Intel Xeon, this guy is also a guy that worked on the 286, Pat Gelsinger, brings the Xeon to the world, and they really start dominating the RISC architectures. So this is two big changes in our history just recently, 1996 and 1998. Intel starts to dominate. About that same time, in 98, Diane Greene revolutionizes virtualization as we know it. And she allowed developers, instead of having to have 3 computers on their desk, they could have 1, and they could run 2 computers inside of 1 computer, for example. In 1998, also that year, my VMware boy was born. And his name's Nolan. He's a really fast runner. He's a junior now, and last year I think he ran a 4:26 mile. And so I say he does mile virtualization because he can run 2 miles in the time it takes me to run 1. So in 2004, I take this big risk, decide to start my own company called Cook Consulting Services. We focused on Microsoft stuff and Citrix stuff, and it was a lot of fun, and the world was changing. In 2004, EMC acquired VMware, and then VMware just started to shoot like a rocket ship. In 2006, this is kind of the third big shift if you're looking at those things of Maritz and Gelsinger. And now you see Gelsinger with Diane Greene on stage together. They're announcing VI3. Raise your hand if you remember VI3 when VI3 came out. So this really changed the server virtualization industry. This is the year that ESX became mainstream, and the name changed to virtual infrastructure as sort of the suite. Also this year, Jeff Bezos announced that he was going to do some cool things with virtualization as well. He was going to offer infrastructure as a service, and he was going to offer it to the masses from the cloud. And then Larry Ellison from Oracle said, the cloud, virtualization, we don't need any of that, right? But we did. So here's a picture of one of my coworkers and dear friends, Jeremy Waldrop. He's still with Varrow today, and he worked with me at Cook Consulting Services after a lot of cajoling and trying to get him to come join. But Jeremy and I put 2 servers, storage, a UPS battery backup, some networking in that little 8U rack. That 8U rack then weighed about 400 pounds, and together, maybe sometimes with 3 people, we would load that in the back of the Volvo, take it all around North Carolina, and empty it out at customers' offices and do like a little 2-hour demo on HA and DRS and vMotion, all the cool, awesome stuff that came with VI3. In 2006, my vMotion girl was born. So Clara, she likes to jump from soccer to basketball to swimming to every sport you can imagine. She says, I want to do that, I want to do that, I want to do that. And so she does not like downtime, and she likes to move around. So that is my vMotion girl, Clara, who is now 9 years old. In 2007, the iPhone came out, and you can see the evolution of the iPhone. We will never be alone again. You will never be able to talk to your children again. So in 2007, my iPhone baby was born, and Alec is now 7 or 8. I'm getting confused here. I got a lot of kids. But he's my iPhone baby. And just like an iPhone, right? He's saying, look at me, Daddy. Play with me, Daddy. So that's my little iPhone baby. In 2008, Dan and I joined forces. This is early in the virtualization and cloud era. And we were really riding that wave. And we were listed in the Inc. 500 and 5,000 from 2010 to 2014. just for all of our growth, for riding that virtualization and cloud wave. So we basically it was 7 of us at the time when we first came together. So he had his own small business, I had my own small business, and we put our 2 small businesses together and we created Varrow Incorporated. So let's talk about some mega trends that are redefining business today. If you think about these big mega trends that Gartner has talked about, cloud, mobile, social, big data, and we think about how that's playing out in the industry, look at this. If you look at Tesla, right? Tesla has a direct relationship with their consumer. So they can directly send a new operating system to the car that can give you an extra 50 miles on the same batteries. GE is getting terabytes of big data a day of information about jet engines that are in their customers' airplanes, and they're looking at that data to figure out when are these engines going to fail. You've got Uber that's changing markets with mobile and cloud and getting rid, the taxi cab industry is shrinking based on new technologies like Uber and Swift. And then obviously you've got things like Nest that leverages the cloud and the whole wearable economy. So things are changing, markets are changing, industries are moving, and businesses need to move fast to be able to compete. So these are some of the trends that we're seeing in the data center that are allowing businesses to move quickly. So it starts off at the very bottom right with the COTS trend. So COTS is commodity off the shelf. If you think about all the transistors that we can now fit in a processor, and you think about a lot of the merchant silicone, basically these prefabricated parts that are being built, building hardware now on prefabricated parts with prefabricated parts on white box computers is getting very popular. If you look at how Facebook is architected, if you look about how Google is architected, we could go on and on down the list of these big startups that are building with commodity off-the-shelf components. The Open Compute program is also being founded. So there's whole industries being formed around commodity off-the-shelf. The flash trend is taking off, right? Flash is totally changing storage, right? Remember back in 1988, 20 times the performance of disk, but it was also 20 or 30 times the cost of spinning disk. So now flash is getting more consumable by all of us, and it's changing how we build infrastructure. But those infrastructures of commodity off-the-shelf components and flash, people don't necessarily want to buy those in pieces parts anymore and put them together themselves. They want to buy those in a converged infrastructure where a lot of the parts are already built and supported by the manufacturer. So this converged infrastructure trend is taking off where you no longer buy compute and storage and network and lay on the virtualization separately. It comes from the factory already built. And leveraging that converged infrastructure as a building block, the software-defined data center is really taking off. So not only are we software-defining compute, which is what VMware Workstation 1.0 gave us back in whatever year that was, Diane Green, when she founded that. Now we're virtualizing network. Now we're virtualizing storage. Now we're virtualizing the operational environmental arenas. So that abstraction turned out to be the most important part of software-defined and virtualization, and now we're trying to apply that to everything. And with that software-defined data center, we're using that as a building block for helping customers build out their business and build out the hybrid cloud, which is let's take this software-defined data center and let's take this public cloud stuff of SaaS and platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, and let's figure out and build a service catalog and figure out how I'm going to choose what am I going to put here private, what am I going to put here public, and I'm going to build out a hybrid cloud solution that's a mix of both that gives me the right compliance and speed and performance and cost that I need at the time. And on top of this new hybrid cloud infrastructure, we're going to be building the applications of tomorrow, building using platform as a service technologies, Hadoop technologies, mobile technologies. All sorts of new technologies are now being built on top of this hybrid cloud platform. So as I said, what VMware did for compute, we're going to do for everything. We're going to apply that to storage, networking, environmentals, and so on. All-purpose, all-flash has come to life. So you could call this the 4th or 5th generation flash platform. This is the fastest growing product in EMC's history. This is called EMC Extreme I/O, and it will hold any workload and all workloads at the same time, and it will scale to very, very large numbers. So this is an amazing solution that's totally changing how we do storage. And this will become, a few years from now, this will become the new normal, just like VI3 became the new normal. And then we'll forget that at some point that spinning disks were ever used for kind of production use data, and spinning disk will become used for archive. So this whole concept of buying as an engineered solution, if we take the analogy of cars, now if you're a hobbyist, you might want to buy a bunch of car parts, and you might want to put those car parts together and make a car. But I think what most customers want that buy cars is to buy a car so they can get from point A to point B. They want to buy the outcome. And that's the idea of engineered solutions, pre-engineered, supported by the manufacturer, built in the factory that gives you a business outcome. And that's why I think converged infrastructure is going to be the new normal. We're going to look back on this time where we thought converged infrastructure was a weird thing when it first came out, and when kind of VCE came up with the concept in 2010 of taking these best-of-breed technologies and putting them together in a stack, building them in a factory. You know, when that first came out, I thought it was weird. A lot of people thought it was weird, but it is becoming the new normal. And IDC is saying this market of converged infrastructure is growing at a growth rate of 50% plus. And there's new categories now forming in this converged infrastructure market. So no longer is it just separate storage, separate compute with a virtualization layer on top delivered in a rack. But there's new technologies, like I was talking a minute ago about COTS, commodity off the shelf. So this whole idea of scaling this to racks and building this with, you know, sort of commodity off the shelf components, that's happening. So there's going to be rack scale converged infrastructure. There's going to be things like Evo Rail, which is hyper-converged, which is basically a 2U rack mount server with 4 nodes in it that you can scale. And that's just a different way to scale, a different way to deliver converged infrastructure. So the different classifications that I think you should be interested in, that you should be researching, are systems integrated from places like VCE, who's the market leader in systems integrated converged infrastructure, hyper-converged, and also looking at the future of rack scale. So I think you're going to hear a lot more about rack scale. What happens is a lot of stuff ends up coming, starting in the Palo Alto area, and then it makes its way to the rest of the world. And that's, you know, those are the things that are going on with Facebook and Google and those kinds of things. And that rack scale stuff is going to come to all of us. So if you think about converged infrastructure and delivering an outcome, you know, what if, instead of buying a car, what if I wanted to buy a whole shipping company business where I want to have all the business tools so I could manage multiple trucks. And some trucks I may want to own, and some trucks I may want to rent, and some employees I might want to have full-time employees, and sometimes employees I might want to have part-time truck drivers. But I want a whole business solution with all the business logic built in, with all the accounting, with everything, so I can make all of these decisions. So I can go buy the trucks and things like that, but I need the whole system as a unit so I can go ahead and start running my trucking business. And let's apply that same analogy to hybrid cloud. I want this complete solution. So if you're going to build it yourself, you're going to take a vBlock or a vSpecs or some other backend infrastructure. And let's just say, for example, one option is you could look at the VMware vRealize suite, and you could take their business component of the vRealize suite, their automation component, their operations component, and their log analytics component, and you could start to build all these pieces on top. And then you're going to probably do a lot of engineering. You're going to look at your business processes, and you're going to try to integrate it with your accounting system. You're going to try to integrate it with your service catalog, and you're going to try to build this service catalog, and you're going to try to figure out, well, what are the things that I normally need? I probably need backup. I probably need DR. I probably need all these different standard templates for different operating systems. And you're going to do a lot of this engineering yourself. But wouldn't it be better if you could just buy a complete solution? And so that's really what one of the companies, EMC, is offering with their hybrid cloud solution. They've put thousands of hours of engineering into this solution so you can buy the complete business in one package. You get ongoing support and maintenance, and what used to be a 6 to 18 months science project to build out this hybrid cloud, to build out this service catalog, to connect that service catalog to Amazon and vCloud Air and other cloud providers. To build all of that out would take a long time, and now you can do it in less than a month. And customers really want this kind of solutions. They want these pre-built solutions. You might want to add more business processes onto this later, but this becomes your starting point, so you can go ahead and start your business. Now, these are some things that we're doing in Varrow Labs. So we're investing a lot in R&D to build things like this enterprise hybrid cloud and demonstrate it to our customers. And then we're taking it a step further. And if we have customers, for example, that have large development departments and they want to do Q&A, let's say you're going to do Q&A and you're going to build out a database server and a web server and an application server, and you're going to do multiple instances of Q&A of different revisions of this code, you're going to want to make sure that every time you do this Q&A process, you build it the same way. So they're advancing with technologies like Puppet and Chef on top of the hybrid cloud to do additional configuration management to make sure that they can build out these processes the same way and execute every time. And so we're changing ourselves internally, we're transforming, we're picking up these new technologies so we can then deliver these solutions to our customers and do advanced automation and take the hybrid cloud and then integrate all of these other components into that service catalog. So I believe that there's going to be new opportunities in the cloud for all of us. Do I think there's going to be change? Yes. Do I think roles are going to change? Yes. But is there going to be opportunity? Absolutely. Somebody's going to have to choose how you're going to architect your hybrid cloud. Somebody's going to have to choose and be the guy that figures out, what do I put in my service catalog? How do I make the decision, when do I run something local? When do I run something in the cloud? When do I run something software as a service? So there's going to be lots of opportunities for all of us. Who's going to figure out how to build all these scripts and all of this automation? So yes, there's going to be change, but there's going to be tons of opportunity for all of us, and this is kind of the way I think it's going. So there's going to be opportunities in the cloud, and I think there's going to be opportunities beyond the cloud. So getting back to Reddit, right, this guy, Alexis Ohanian, who's going to be our keynote speaker this afternoon. If you look at Reddit, there's this thing called AMAs. And AMAs are Ask Me Anythings. And this is just a big threaded list of a famous person usually says, I'm going to be in an AMA, and then people just start asking questions in real time. And so Barack Obama's been on there, Bill Gates, a lot of people have done these AMAs. And recently, Elon Musk, who was born in 1971, who some people refer to as Tony Stark, the real Tony Stark, he got on an AMA, and he started talking about the colonization of Mars. And knowing Mr. Tony Stark, you know, that could happen. So that's pretty interesting. So there are going to be lots of opportunities in the future, not only in the clouds, but beyond the clouds. So I want to close this off here with a little letter that I wrote to Thomas. And hopefully I don't get choked up on stage here. But welcome, Thomas. Welcome to this fast-moving world. You are the baby of the cloud, mobile, and social generation. As you have heard, everything changes, everything evolves, from basketball to computers to space travel. Embrace that change, believe in yourself, and do not be afraid. By 2030, when you are 15, I bet we will have watched Star Wars together and E.T. multiple times. And each time E.T. goes home, we will cry. And each time the rebellion wins, we will cheer. We'll have watched multiple competitive NCAA tournaments and will have enjoyed the many Cinderella stories that took shape in real time before our eyes. We may watch a streaming live news broadcast of men landing on Mars. If Elon Musk has anything to do with it, it could happen. We will have amazing new technology that makes our lives way too easy. I'm not sure how it could be much easier than it is, but it will be. You will urge me to stay in shape and not get fat. I will help you shoot a basketball for the first time. There will be 50 billion connected devices in the world. You will help me with technology as things evolve, and I will be behind. You will always be curious, and you will always be learning new things. You will be a great sharer and a great leader. The force will be strong with you, and I will remind you to use it only for good. Please always stay in motion, learning, sharing, competing, and caring. Because like Yoda said, always in motion is the future. Welcome to Varrow Madness. Hope you guys have an awesome time. Enjoy the sessions. Make sure you come to the afternoon keynote, and thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.